Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy, and the Karate Kid Legends. It looks good, it looks bad. We're going to go into it. And also, what else have we got?
A bunch of other stuff. Harry Potter casting came out. A lot of people are apoplectic about it, and I think they're being ridiculous.
Yeah, well, let's get right into it then.
Yes.
I'm also going to do a vintage movie recommendation every episode, so something a lot of people might not have heard about.
Sure. Thank you.
No problem.
So, young actors revealed for Harry Potter TV series. I just spoke about this on our Spanish channel, but a lot of people are having issues with, especially the girl cast for Hermione. But HBO has announced the young actors who will play the lead trio in its TV series adaptation of J.K. Rowling's book series Harry Potter. Dominic McLaughlin, who's this guy, Arabella Stanton, and Alistair Stout have been cast as Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, and Ron Weasley. And while there's other issues with the casting for Harry Potter, with Papa Isidore interpreting Black Snape now. I think the casting of Arabella Stanton actually makes sense.
Yeah, well, and they all look distinctively different. The redheaded kid looks very distinctive, so it's good when you can very much distinguish the characters from one another.
Let's also just say he's never watched Harry Potter.
Well, no, but what I've been watching is a lot of casting in movies lately that they're forgetting the basic rules of filmmaking, which is make sure the characters are very distinguishable. Mm-hmm.
From one another.
So much so you usually don't want characters with similar hair colors that have a similar look.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And someone made this comment in my Spanish live saying that at least they didn't end off the redhead and replace him with a person of color, because that's usually what they do.
Yeah.
They change one minority, which is redheads, for another one, and we end up not seeing any redheads anymore. The whole thing around Arabella Stanton, a lot of people are saying that it might be like forced inclusion or that it's forced casting, race swapping.
But I think seems fine.
Yeah, she seems fine, and she interpreted Matilda in the Harry Potter musical, which I think is a character that's very similar to Hermione Granger, with her know-it-allness and having that aura of being older than she is. I believe the actress is actually like 10. They're all within 9 and 11 years old.
Yeah.
So we'll see how they act. We know during the original movies, the actors, they were kids acting. It was very obvious at the beginning, and then at the end, I don't know if they got better, but...
Well, when you have such a big property like this, I understand they're 10, but they look a little bit older. I would have liked them to go extremely young just so they could have grown with the series, because if they age out at any point, it could potentially ruin the series.
Yeah, and towards the end of the original movies, did the actors look a little bit old? Yes. But it still kind of made sense. They are growing within the years in school as well. And with the age thing, and them looking a little bit older than they actually are, I started positing that it might be because of all the hormones and stuff that are all over the place that make people, and children especially, look older than they actually are. But this is not the thing I would complain about. I'd keep complaining about Papa Isidore and also his comments about against J.K. Rowling, essentially.
You know a lot more than I do, and you might know a lot more than some of the audience. Who's Papa Isidore?
So Papa Isidore was a person that was cast for Snape. If you don't know who Snape is, he is very famously he's described in the books as a sallow, very pale, almost like a ghost in between the living and the dead. And they cast a black actor for that role. And that casting was very obviously trying to do forced diversity, where it doesn't make sense within the storyline. And I said the same thing. If the kid that they cast for Harry Potter doesn't have green eyes, which is very important to the storyline as well, at least put contacts in or something. But those are the details that people and casting directors and directors in general keep forgetting that are important to the intellectual property that they're now trying to remake. A lot of the things that they try to change out actually were important to the storylines.
Well, I don't know. The kid doesn't he look kind of racist? He looks like the guy from Adolescence.
Oh yeah, he does. He does. They look like British kids.
That's a joke. If you haven't seen the show Adolescence, they try to pin I don't know, the kid must be 10 years old.
He was 13.
And they try to pin him as this huge misogynist.
Yes, trying to pin toxic masculinity on online.
Yeah, and the main actor
media
here kind of looks like the main actor in that show.
Yes. But
okay.
they're cute. Could she be a couple shades lighter? Some people say maybe, but the character of Hermione
I don't
doesn't
think it
have a
matters.
very specific racial description. I will say Cursed Child, in my opinion, is not canon. And there they did try to turn Hermione black to do like a forced diversity inclusion. And the ones that wrote it said it that's what they were doing.
Yeah, and I don't mind if they do race swap here or there as long as it doesn't go against like the heritage or the script, things like that. But when they do a period piece about, was it Queen Elizabeth?
No, they did Anne Boleyn.
Oh, Anne Boleyn.
Black Anne Boleyn.
Like, that's just insane. I don't mind it if you do it on a character like this. And
Rewriting
things like that.
history. That's 1984
Yeah.
covertly through the media.
Okay, let's go into the
Also,
next.
it does
go ahead.
kind of annoy me sometimes as well. Background characters and background actors in historical period pieces where, I mean, at the time, if they were gonna, like, if there were people of color in the UK or places where the films are taking place, you usually would have been slaves. So, but they make them out to be, and that's just rewriting history and actually, in my opinion, an insult to what the people in those times were having to live through when you don't want to tell the stories, the reality, and want to kind of switch it into your magical thinking of, oh, this is the way it should have been. This is the way we're going to say it was.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go into
Sorry.
Tom Cruise, and he was pretty happy over the Mission Impossible numbers. I thought that the fact that Lilo and Stitch so much overshadowed that movie, maybe you wouldn't hear much from Cruise, but it was the highest grossing Mission Impossible movie, at least for the opening weekend. So he's quite happy with that, and he let the studio know, and he let the fans know, which was really good.
Yeah, and he's one of those few last remaining actual actor celebrities that are like well known, well respected, and that have done their jobs properly. And he does take care of the fans. He does go and say hi.
And we missed the beginning of the movie when we came, did we? Because somebody said that he said thank you to the audience in the beginning of the movie.
They didn't play it in ours because we went to a screening ahead of time. He did that, and I did go to watch the one before this, so Dead Reckoning, and I think. Yes, Dead Reckoning, and he did do that as well in that one.
Well, he did it in Top Gun, and then he did it in
he did
this
Top
one.
Gun too. Then it was Top Gun.
Yeah, it's nice that he does that.
Yeah.
It's something that they did in The Sound of Freedom as well, which I really liked.
Yes.
So they did it at the end of that movie, which was...
And I mean, also, I'm thanking the fans for going to watch him for over 3 hours with no pee breaks. And also with...
Well, I had three pee breaks.
He actually didn't care because you didn't like it that much.
Yeah, but still,
As much as
I
I
don't
did.
like to miss the movie, so I did run. And luckily, the bathroom was right in front of the theater when I exited.
But also thanking Paramount because as a studio, it is kind of worrisome when your main actor that's well known wants to go jump off planes and cliffs and parachute. Like, he could break anything and delay production for who knows how long. Insurance costs go through the roof once you have actors actually doing the stunts themselves. That's why they're stunt people. But I mean, it's great that they let him, that they had enough trust in him and his abilities and his training to do it himself.
Well, I think he really toes the line. He says, if you want me for the movie,
Yes.
you have to let me do this. Now, Florence Pugh's trying to be the female Tom Cruise and do the same thing, making the same demands.
She has two things that might get in the way of her trying to do any kind of stunt.
Okay, well, let's keep moving on here. And I missed the story on my morning show, which is Live with the Guy every day at
Yes.
12 Central Time.
Yes.
I keep forgetting when I introduced that show too. But this was Survivor
So
50.
Survivor 50 cast reveal disappoints fans amid signs host Jeff Probst is too involved.
Okay, well, I did watch the original Survivor, the very first season, and it wasn't 50 years ago. It was actually 25 years ago. So it premiered on May 31st of the year 2000, right around the time The Matrix came out. And that was a huge time for Hollywood, huge time for TV. There was a lot of good things coming out around that era. I think Sons of Anarchy was somewhere around there. But they do 2 seasons a year. That's why they were able to get to season 50 within 25 years. So it's going to be interesting what they do for season 50. I haven't watched anything since season 1, so maybe I'll watch some highlights of season 50. I had watched little bits and highlights of different things on YouTube about Survivor. I really did like the first one, but I mean, I kind of phased out of TV at a certain point.
I've never really watched it. I know in Mexico they do one as well, and in Canada all over the place. And they usually invite like influencers and content creators
Well, I like how they, when I used
because
to...
it used to be like people that needed money, right?
Well, it's not only people that wanted and needed money, but they had very often had men versus women, which was very interesting. Especially today, it would be very nice to see that. But I have a feeling they would kind of rig it for the women, and every time it was men versus women, the men would kind of dominate everything. But yeah.
But yeah, I never watched it. But
Yeah.
yes. So people are disappointed with it.
Okay.
That was it.
Well, yeah, that was it. I just kind of wanted to say it. It's a 50-year homage. You might see something. They might do some pretty spectacular things for season 50. And the host is getting really old now. I mean, I hear it still gets good ratings, so I don't think they'll cancel it. I think they'll keep going with it.
Well, hopefully the fans like it.
It's a formulaic show that they can just keep on repeat.
Because, yeah, apparently there have been iconic castaways that have tugged at viewers' heartstrings and others who have seen fan calls for their removal within the casting. So that's why people are mad.
And let's go into, the next thing was my movie recommendation.
Yes.
And that is going to be Big Trouble in Little China. If you haven't seen this movie, and a lot of people may have not, because this is really from my generation. So if you're a little bit younger than me, you may not have heard about it. You may not even have heard about it if you were in my generation. This is what was called a cult classic. It actually bombed at the box office. It cost $25 million to make at the time. It made only $11 million in the box office. But after it left the box office, it became a major cult classic, and that's where everybody really discovered it, and that's where it made its money back. This is one of the big films that made Kurt Russell as an adult. He was already a child star before that, and he had been in some things as an adult, but this movie really put him back on the map.
What's it? Continue.
What's it called?
What's it about?
Oh, what's it about? So this also really was the rise of the anti-hero, because before this it was just your traditional hero. He didn't want to be a hero. He was a truck driver, and he's dragged into this big mess of a situation. It's a comedy. It's a comedy, an action, and a fantasy movie all combined. That's why it didn't do too well at the theaters. It kind of confused audiences and critics, so people didn't review it good. But once they seen it on home video, it absolutely created a new type of genre, and like a mixed match genre. So you see, like, I would say something that's similar to this nowadays would be maybe Daredevil, where they mix humor and comedy. Back then, that was like a no-go.
Daredevil or Deadpool?
Oh, sorry, Deadpool. But that was a no-go back then. You haven't seen this, I'm guessing. No. And there's really iconic actors in this. All the major Chinese classic actors they would put in all the American movies come from this movie. So it was very interesting. It has all practical effects. It does have an 80s look to it, so don't expect it to be very modern, but it is all practical effects. It's great humor. They do everything really well in it. Okay, we can move on. I'll start making one recommendation a day of perhaps movies people haven't seen.
Karate Kid Legends will provide kick to summer box office, but won't KO the Lilo and Stitch 60 million second weekend.
Oh, why don't you talk a little bit about this? I talked about it on my afternoon show.
Well, the problem is I don't know anything about Karate Kid, so I can't really talk about it. I can't talk about Lilo and Stitch and the fact that the fact they went centrist and down the middle and didn't put almost any ideology into it is what worked for Disney. Will they learn from it? No. Karate Kid.
I'll talk. I can take over here. I know a lot about the Karate Kid. So Karate Kid, again, was from my time. Absolutely loved it, especially part one. Part one was above all the other Karate Kids by a country mile. Just like Rambo Part 1 was so much better than every other Rambo. It's not to say the other ones weren't okay, but they were just okay, where you really had a cult classic movie with both Rambo and the Karate Kid. The Karate Kid also had a bunch of sequels that really didn't hit that hard, and it had a bunch of modern sequels as well with Jaden Smith. They had the Karate Kid girl version, and audiences really were kind of done with the Karate Kid until they made the series on YouTube, and it hit hard, so big that Netflix eventually bought the series. It's now a modern cult classic, so it has a modern audience as well as the traditional audience that remembers the original Karate Kid. This thing is really set up for a big box office. The problem is it's getting bad reviews, so I don't think it's going to get the big box office. They did everything right because it looks like they probably left politics out. They put the original Karate Kid in there, which his name is
Ralph
Macchio, and they put Jackie Chan in there. The original sensei had passed away, so Jackie Chan had kind of taken over, and he's been in some of the modern iterations of the Karate Kid with Jaden Smith.
Yeah.
So, man, I think this would have done really well if it wasn't going against Lilo and Stitch and they had done some better script writing, because from what I hear, the reviews are coming in and it's not good. And if if it gets a bad reputation on pre-reviews and Rotten Tomatoes, this is the kind of movie people are going to check Rotten Tomatoes audience score on. And if it has a bad audience score, they're going to say, let's go see Lilo and Stitch. So.
And then the one on Netflix, the one on YouTube people really liked was Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai, yeah. And then they just kept expanding that, and then Netflix picked it up, and now it is big. I see Cobra Kai shirts all over Mexico and Canada as well. It's big in the United States. So, I mean, it was amazing how it really made a comeback through YouTube. And I think that's something I didn't talk about this morning, but if people start taking classic IPs, making them on YouTube, and then they pick up steam, like this, it's a new way to really bust into the streaming sector, I think.
But the problem is copyright. Like YouTube and the big Hollywood production houses are very taking down everyone.
But some IPs are like a lot of Disney IPs, like Snow White and stuff.
Well, the original stories, yes, but not the Disney version.
Yeah, but what happens if people start making stuff on YouTube that's better than the Disney, especially with AI?
That would be a good idea.
And then release it right around the time Disney's releasing theirs.
Well, that's what Daily Wire wanted to do with Brett Cooper. They just completely failed out of that because they failed everybody.
Yeah, letting Brett Cooper go and Candace Owens, especially Candace Owens, was a mistake.
Yes.
Okay.
One of the stupidest things they did.
Well, we had a secondary article about the reviews. Why don't you go into that, and why don't you read a little bit of this one?
So this is a Karate Kid Legends review. Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio in a sequel, old-fashioned enough to be likable, retro corn. Ben Wang is live and captivating as the ain't that a kick in the head hero who moves from Beijing to New York and winds up with two training gurus. Who are these? Because it's the sixth installment of a 40-year-old franchise, you might assume that Karate Kid Legends is going to retrofit the formula, filtering it through the sort of technologically empowered overkill that defines most latter-day sequels. There's one explicit way that the movie updates the series. The hero, Li Fong, Ben Wang, is a teenager who's been training at the Beijing dojo of Shifu Han, Jackie Chan, where he has mastered a kung fu move called the Dragon Kick, a corkscrew, movie captured in all its complex gymnastics. A move, okay? Yeah.
Well,
basically, it's
if it does manage to release in China, it could potentially save this movie because Jackie Chan, I believe, is pretty big in China.
But do they still like him?
I think
weren't they mad at him?
I don't think so. No.
Okay.
And then it looks like they cast a Chinese kid as the main actor, so it could do well in China. And if it does, maybe it will get better box office than expected. But they were pretty nice about the review. I read quite a few other reviews and watched some reviews on YouTube, and people just didn't like the movie.
But what were the reasons?
I can't. Yeah.
Just in general?
They just generally just thought it was a step down. And I think they're probably comparing it to the series and the classic Karate Kid. So, yeah.
And also, like, as the review says, it's a 40-year-old franchise. And I do think, even though they've brought out more and more stuff, maybe even a little more recently, they did let it breathe for a little bit, which is what I keep saying about Mission Impossible, for example. Like, don't try to make the next one with the new hero and don't make it a woman to replace Tom Cruise. But letting these franchises breathe, even with the Harry Potter new series, I think they should have given it a little bit more time before trying to redo it with a new cast, with new people, with even the same storyline. I think it needed a little bit more time.
I don't think so. I think now was the time to make this pop because it has the modern...
This one?
Yeah,
I'm saying this one's good.
Oh, yeah,
but like with Harry Potter and Mission Impossible, don't try to restart them right away because you don't give people enough time to be nostalgic about it or even regain an interest in it again.
Yeah, but this one had... people forgot about the Jaden Smith thing because that really killed this, and the YouTube thing is fresh in everybody's mind, and people really flocked to that series. And it was fairly low budget. It's not the best looking series, but people really just like the nostalgia of it. Okay, let's go into. Actually, I connected a story with this, and this was Jaden Smith. He just kind of popped up on my X, and I was like, God, modern masculinity has gone downhill, and it's just there's nobody to look up to. Not that I'm trying to look up to anybody, but for modern kids and stuff.
And I mean, Jaden Smith is a Nepo baby whose parents are weird.
He's got high heels and this tutu dress and some jeans.
Jaden.
Like, I don't think.
Hi.
I mean, at least he's looking healthier. I'll say that. He was looking like a straight up crackhead for a while. I mean, he was missing teeth. He was gaunt. He was looking extremely bad.
Yeah, I remember.
And with the rumors swirling around his parents, you wonder if anything happened there. But I mean, at least Will Smith tries to be masculine.
No.
He used to.
When?
When I was coming up, he's kind of lost that now because of all the scandals that are surrounding him. Before all the LGBTQ rumors and stuff came out and all the allegations. But before that, even during iRobot, after French Prince of Bel-Air, he really came into his own for a while. So, okay.
I never really liked Will Smith.
Yeah.
I never understood the appeal.
He was. I thought he was solid in my time, but then I mean, there was a point where his career just went off the rails, and it was before he slapped Chris Rock. And once he did that, it was like it's done for him.
Yes.
Okay, let's go into Kevin Costner, and I talked a little bit about this earlier.
But now Kevin Costner's lawyer cries shakedown as stunt woman slams Star and Horizon franchise over violent, unscripted R-word scene. And sorry, that's literally what we said. What I said during your show that was probably the actual truth, that it was just a shakedown. It kind of sounds like the whole Blake Lively allegations as well, where it's like, oh, there's no intimacy coordinator, blah, 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 and just someone trying to get a paycheck.
Well, Hollywood's really drying up right now in a lot of ways. AI is coming in, studio budgets are getting cut. There's a transition back to the mainstream. But this female stunt woman seems like she needs a paycheck, and this is an extra scene that was added. She would have got paid more for the day. She didn't say no. Yes, there was no intimacy coordinator, but like, come on now.
Yes.
Like this is just overkill, and she said it wasn't in her contract. Well, you can read a little bit in a minute, but they were really nitpicking the details to try to set up this lawsuit, and they know the allegations that are kind of in this lawsuit can make headlines, even though there's nothing really behind it.
Yeah,
it's a paper tiger.
And that's what I think more and more people have learned to identify since the whole Me Too era stupidity. But some people still believe all these things. So Kevin Costner and his Horizon and American Saga franchise are already facing legal action from New Line over a co-financing deal. And now the star director of the Western series has been hit with an harassment suit by a veteran stunt woman over an unscheduled, unrehearsed, violent, unscripted R-word scene. Costner's longtime attorney, Marty Singer, has bluntly called shakedown on the unspecified damages jury trial seeking complaint from Devin LaBella.
And they've been out for Kevin Costner for a while.
Yeah.
He's a conservative in Hollywood. He's much more traditional, and he does his own thing. He'll find financing for his own movies, things like this. In this sense, he kind of is like a Mel Gibson type. They were able to have a lot more dirt on Mel Gibson, so they're really reaching for this. But when something does come up, I'm sure somebody's willing to pay for her lawyer.
And also during, when he exited Yellowstone as well.
Yeah.
They got mad
That was
at him.
huge. Okay, let's go into Quebec legislator, and now we're going to start getting into a little bit more politics. We front load with cultural news usually, pop culture news, just so the YouTube censors don't bother us too much.
Yeah. Do you want to watch it or? Oh no, it's an article. Sorry.
No.
So Quebec legislature votes unanimously to cut all ties with the monarchy right after or during when the king was there. Yeah, the King of Canada was there.
Well, the King of Canada, which is actually the King of the UK, was given the throne speech for Canada, talking about how he rules over Canada. Quebec got together and said, no, we don't want to be part of the monarchy no more, and has completely renounced it. And this is what I said when we talked about King Charles going there. the new prime minister of Canada so badly wants to separate himself from Trump, say, we're sovereign, we're independent, we're never going to be America. Well, you're not that sovereign because you have a king, and actually you're under the monarchy of the UK. So now it's really confusing and it doesn't make sense to a lot of Canadians. And a lot of Canadians, they might not want Trump, but if you're giving them a choice between Trump and the monarchy, I think they're picking Trump just because you have national defense and the U.S. is headed in the right direction. Well, the U.K. has already fallen down.
There are some people in Canada that still like the monarchy, but Quebec has always been like very against it. They've always been very, I mean, there was a whole Quebec-Qua separation movement already, but...
Well, this is going to have big implications on Alberta. If they thought, like, I thought Albertans would say something about this, something like this, but it was Quebec that actually took action. Mm-hmm. Imagine how the Albertans are feeling right now. And Canada's in a really desperate situation to try to get Alberta not to leave, because if they do, Canada is going to become a third world country.
So let's read what the CTV News says. King Charles III had barely left the country as the National Assembly unanimously adopted a motion on Tuesday to cut all ties with the monarchy. The motion was tabled by Parti Québécois, I believe it is, leader Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon after question period on a red letter day in another parliament, Ottawa, where the monarch delivered the speech from the throne a day before. For the first time since 1977. So you can tell, like, the throne speech is usually given by the governor of Canada, who is a person appointed by the king, the queen before, to do all of the monarchy stuff in Canada, essentially. Yeah. And usually it's the governor of Canada that does it in representation of the crown, the king. But now the king is there because they're desperate, clearly. So they brought him in, but the PQ motion was adopted unanimously with 106 votes in favor and no abstentions. Even the Federalist Liberals, who are more attached to Canadian institutions, voted in favor, as did the CAQ government benches, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, so this is definitely going to be something to keep an eye on, and this was a good sign because Carney's trying to pit Trump against Canada in order to stop the Albertans from leaving. If Quebec feels this way, Alberta definitely does. So, yeah, I'm happy to see this. And anything that gets Alberta one step closer to separating, I'm not saying they need to join the United States. They can be independent. If their independence fails, they can always go back to Canada or go to the United States if they need more support. But they need to take, at least try to go out on their own, because Canada has completely stepped all over them like a doormat for decades now.
And as I did in my video about Harry and Meghan and the monarchy in Spanish, I still keep getting comments saying, "Oh, they're not liberals, they're not on the left, they're not woke. What do you mean? They're part of the monarchy, they're capitalists." Which, yes, I agree. That's why I said it's hypocritical of them to be trying to portray these victim mentality, progressive, lefty, woke people when they're not, and they never will be. But King Charles is also, like, very heavily involved with a lot of very globalist organizations and institutions, and with the plans he has, which he also outlined during his throne speech.
Yeah, we kind of talked about it on yesterday's live, but everything that was in his speech was the reason I left Canada, and I'm glad I'm not there. I was pissed all yesterday after watching that speech. I watched the full thing. I actually waited 3 hours to watch it. And man, Canada is headed in a bad direction. There was one good thing. Mark Carney had run on going against Trump and not being part of the United States, but all of his advisors behind the scene, there's been a paper that was kind of leaked out, which they advised him to go against Trump. But as soon as the election was done, he needs to bend the knee. Mm-hmm. And that's what they're saying he's now going to do.
And he's already shown intent.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going. What do we got here? Tommy Robinson, I believe. Yes. And I just want to mention it quickly because we went pretty in depth on my afternoon show. Mm-hmm. But if you don't know, Tommy Robinson was let out of jail. He's a journalist that was held for 180 days for speaking the truth in a documentary and exposing the government. The government did not like him exposing the grape gangs in the UK. So they tried to silence him. He's now released, but good news, bad news. They've charged him with more charges. Mm-hmm. What was the type of charges again I was saying?
Something about social media?
Not hate speech, but... anxiety. So yeah, they're now charging people that are complaining that somebody else gives them anxiety. They're charging the person that's causing the anxiety, which is crazy because the anxiety is nothing more than a feeling.
Yes.
What happens if I give myself an anxiety? Are you going to arrest me for it? Like, this is crazy. It's even a step past hate speech.
Yes.
And this is why so many people in the free speech movement were so against legislating hate speech or legislating compelled speech, because it becomes a very slippery slope on who's in power and who gets to dictate what you can and cannot say.
And that's also something I always used to keep mentioning when I did content in English and other channel, when all of these bills and legislation was trying to pass in Canada, and eventually it did, that even though, for example, at the time, the Liberals were the ones wanting to censor speech, essentially censor speech and get rid of free speech, what happens when the other side gets in, and now what kind of speech will they censor now using the bills that have been passed and that are very hard to take back? Like, it's very hard to undo the passing of the bills and of like censorship. What happens when the opposite side takes power, if they ever do, and who are they going to be censoring now? Because once that power is there, everybody's going to grab it, no matter who you are.
Oh, yeah. And Tommy Robinson did a long format interview with Rebel News. They had been over there for about a week. They had welcomed him out of prison when he was released, and now they got a long format interview. It was really good. I watched it today. I highly recommend it. As Levant does the interview himself. He's the owner of Rebel News. Rebel News is an amazing media source. It's one of the few independent journalist organizations that's survived in Canada somehow. Tommy Robinson here, though, looks a lot different because he was just released. Now, this beard in his hair was not intentional. They wouldn't let him shave or have a haircut while he was in prison. He was also isolated for the majority of the 180 days, which is crazy. On top of that, he looks pretty good here with the beard, but he shaves it for the Rebel News interview, and he's extremely skinny, meaning he was malnutritioned where he was in jail.
Yeah.
So, best of luck to Tommy. I hope to see him do good things, and I think eventually he'll start running for politics, and he'll really represent true blue collar workers in the UK if he can ever get in. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Let me see if we have. Oh, we do have comments.
Oh, we do.
Walker says, 80s movies were very simple for me. However, I think that tendency to blur the lines between good and evil has led us to what cinema is today, where they often justify evil. Although I enjoy, too, the concept, I think that playing between the gray areas is the door to what I say, even justifying evil, as long as it is on the side of the dominant woke ideology. I know, he keeps saying, I know it's not related to the topic, but I wanted to express it. Sorry. And you're completely right.
Well, yeah, and I really did I really like movies with anti-heroes. So The Big Trouble in Little China was an anti-hero and a reluctant hero. Another movie that was maybe not so big, but at the time it had an unknown actor, which was Vin Diesel, who hasn't done much since then other than Fast and the Furious. But Pitch Black was the perfect story arc of an anti-hero as well. I really like anti-heroes, but they're much more complex to flush out and write for, so you need good writers when you write for anti-heroes.
But I think even though anti-heroes, are entertaining to watch and are interesting to watch, as Walker says, the line and the justification of evil that has stemmed through that, and making actual villains or people who would usually be portrayed as villains into the heroes, or justifying their actions and then kind of expanding that into the real world, is one of the things that all the wokes and progressive elites keep doing, because they want to justify their own evil.
Yeah. Well, what else did he say? I seen he had quite a few comments there.
So I read all of the first ones, and Rafa says, the new Karate Kid movie is cool, but it is the same as the previous ones. I think it was a lost opportunity. Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio should have been epic.
Did he watch it?
I don't know. He doesn't say if he's watched it. Did you watch it, Rafa? Let us know. If not, it still holds.
Yeah. Okay.
And Walker says that Mr. Jaden has serious problems in every possible way, both mentally and, dare I say, addictions as well. Will Smith was an actor that my dad and I really enjoyed. His action movies were almost a tradition.
See, I did as well. And yeah. Bad Boys, I forgot Bad Boys was a great little movie. Yeah.
Those were more boy movies.
Yeah. He did do a lot of that's the thing. He did a lot of action movies, and he was a male role model for a lot of people during that time.
The one I remember,
And then he completely fell off the deep end.
The one
I think they were really trying to kill all the masculine role models from that era.
What was the one with the zombies?
Oh, I can't remember, but I know the one you're talking
That's
about.
the one I remember. And then I remember him in rom-coms. That's all I know him from.
Yeah, that's right around the zombie movie. After that, he started really transitioning.
What was the
and stuff.
rom-com where he eats a shrimp and his face gets all big? That's the one thing I remember him from. And Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Men in Black as well, said Rafa.
Yeah, Men in Black was good as well.
And Walker keeps saying, I'm surprised that with Canada's years of ideological drift, this didn't happen sooner. People are dumb and they're sheep. And they just kind of got conditioned to go along with whatever daddy government said for too long. Walker also says everything that happens in Latin America and the West is in John Glubb's book, The Fate of Empires. He describes everything that Canada has in that book. Yes. I Am Legend, the zombie movie.
Oh, yeah,
said
that
Rafa.
was it.
Yes, thank you. And he said, yes, he watched Karate Kid in the cinema.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. Canada, if it takes a hard fall here, then maybe it would be enough to wake Canadians up. I think they need a hard economic fall, and people are going to need to suffer in order for them to wake up politically.
Yeah.
Because, the writing is all over the wall. It's in the legislation. It's everywhere. Mm-hmm. And when the economy does fall and people want to uprise or want to speak against the government, the censorship legislation is going to be set in stone, and there's going to be no way to really rise and change.
Because that's exactly why they passed that legislation. It's not for the safety and security of citizens. It's to keep citizens shut.
Well, and Mark Carney made a statement today saying freedom is earned every day. Freedom's earned every day. Well, no, it should be a fundamental right. Mm-hmm. It's only earned if somebody's given it to you. And apparently Mark Carney thinks he's giving the people beneficently freedom.
Yeah.
Which is a joke.
Freedom does come with responsibilities, though, but it's very different than saying freedom is granted.
Okay, what was the next story here?
Gays against groomers.
Oh, hold on. I just want to make sure because we're getting close. No.
Or do you want to do Elon Musk?
Let's move this story to RUMBLE, but let's not go there yet. Let's just do the other stories.
Which one?
We'll do Elon Musk.
Okay.
We'll do the 3 last stories, and then that one and the Hungarian president will take over to RUMBLE with the others. Okay.
So as Guy came in as a producer yelling at me during my live show towards the end, and I tried to explain this, but I don't know if I did properly. My scheduled time comes to an end. Musk announces breakup with Trump after potshot on Big Beautiful Bill. Elon Musk is stepping down from his advisory role in the U.S. government, where he worked with President Donald Trump to cut down waste and streamline federal operations. Yeah, and I don't take this at face value at all. He was going to step out of the administration. He had already said that in a few months, but he really needs to make it look like it's a public breakup. So this is probably orchestrated by him and Trump, so he can try to stop the backlash that's happening to his companies right now. So that's kind of what I'm guessing. I still think behind the scenes he's going to have a ton of influence because Trump's bringing him around to meet all kinds of world leaders and engage in different kind of AI deals and things like that. Because it also kind of came out of the blue. I didn't even know they were fighting. Yesterday, I found out they were fighting about the bill thing.
Well, I was just thinking this the other day when we were talking about the story, and he was saying, "Oh, he's going to leave the administration in a few months." I was saying, "Well, they have to make it like a public spat." Otherwise, he's still going to get backlash in his companies.
For being involved.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to keep a close eye on Elon Musk and Trump's relationship now because it's going to be interesting. I don't think they have any kind of spat really. I think he just needs to quietly go back to running his businesses and doing things like that. And he's probably got a lot of deals to make behind the scenes with other countries and things. Trump's kind of made all the introductions, and he is running some huge international companies that are probably going to collaborate with the United States as well now. So it may be a conflict of interest if he does that while he's still in office. Okay, let's continue to the Trump administration orders Michigan coal plant to stay open.
Oh, I don't have that.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just going to talk. You don't need to grab it.
Okay.
I'll just talk about it real quick. I just wanted to bring the talking point up. This is really good. Trump's not going to shut down this Michigan coal plant. It's close to the Canadian border. The Canadians were threatening to cut off electricity. China's building massive coal plants, massive nuclear plants, massive green energy. So now's not the time to shut down any part of your energy sector. If they want to start building nuclear, that's fantastic, and it looks like they're going in that direction. They're also drill, baby, drill, and they're also investing in the green sector. They need to go on all cylinders if they want to compete with Russia, China, and Iran. So now's not the time to shut down coal plants, and it's good that he's coming out and just bluntly saying he's not going to shut down any coal plants. Mm-hmm. And you were talking a little bit about Marco Rubio here on your other show.
Yes, so U.S. to ban foreign officials over flagrant censorship on social media. Kind of has to do with what we were talking about with Canada as well. But they're apparently focusing on the European Union and the things that they have done to some American social media companies. So the U.S. will impose visa bans on foreign nationals it deems to be censoring Americans, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Wednesday. And he suggested the new policy could target officials regulating U.S. companies. Rubio did not name any specific instances of censorship, and it's from Reuters, so it's kind of biased. But U.S. Tech companies and the Trump administration have challenged U.S. allies in Europe, alleging censorship of social media platforms.
Yeah, and J.D. Vance came out with the multiple speeches talking directly to the EU, talking directly about these meme arrests and these chilling free speech laws. We just talked about Tommy Robinson, so that's a first-hand case of how one man's telling the truth as a journalist, and they're throwing him in jail for the longest period of time any journalist has been thrown in jail in the UK. And now the UK government actually aligns with all of his views because the people are pushing back, yet they won't back off of Tommy Robinson. So it's good to see the U.S. government actually come in and say, okay, well, if you're going to keep censoring speech and not have freedom of speech as a core Western value, it's not just an American value. This is one of the values that was put forth for all the West. Yes. Now, all the West seems to turn to globalist. It seems to be globalist now and not want free speech.
Yes, free speech is one of the main tenets of classical liberalism, which is what most of the European countries and the U.S. are founded upon. So, and I mean, England was the country of free speech. That's where essentially the importance of it was justified within the law and justified within their own way and rule of law. So it is insane that now in the UK, you can just Google it or watch it on X. There's arrests for people for making people feel anxious on X or because their posts made somebody uncomfortable. And now their feelings are taking precedent over people being able to speak not only whatever they want, but against their own government, which is what free speech is actually for.
Well, and this is just the first step because we know what's coming next. They're not just talking about they're censoring citizens and arresting U.S. citizens for free speech over there, but there's massive fines levied against Google, YouTube, Facebook. We're talking billions of dollars here, which they're trying to cripple these companies within the EU so they don't have access to that market. This is going to send a message saying this is step one. Step two is if you keep censoring the American companies, we're going to come after you in firmer and firmer ways. Mm-hmm. And this is definitely going to play into the negotiations with the tariffs as well that's currently on Europe.
Hopefully.
Or not currently on Europe. Yeah. He delayed them a little bit, but it's 50% is kind of lingering over their head.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully.
Okay, let's go over to RUNBLE now.
Yes, let me see if there's any more comments on YouTube.
And I think we got like 5 stories here that are a little bit too hot for YouTube. So
yes, some of them have to do with jibby jabs, also trans stuff, and yes, stuff we can't talk about on YouTube because of censorship.
But I am happy we do have Rumble, even though the platform's kind of mismanaged.
Yes. So now I guess I'm clapping so people know where to find it on Rumble when we do the transition, funnily enough. But yes. So we're going to RUNBLE.
Okay, you don't have to be awkward about it. Okay, let's continue. Tell me when we're off of YouTube and over on Rumble. And then I'm going to switch.
We're off of YouTube, but I got to do a bunch of stuff before you start.